friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop, getting ready to start a brand new project. This is one by which all others are judged. Meaning that this is one of those old classic Martin guitars that everybody's looking for all the time. You're always looking to find one at a garage sale or somewhere tucked someplace cheap, you know, where you can just pick it up for little or nothing. Well, you could have picked this one up for little or nothing back in 1967, because here's the original price tag. It says $400. Martin D28. I was thinking it was a D18 from memory, but now that I look at it again, it's obviously a D28. And I'm going to show it to you right here, right now. There you go. It's got some signatures on it, and I know he wants to keep those signatures. And it's got that classic look. It's that loved look. It's been played a lot. And you can see the rosewood back and sides, the two-piece back, and that's kind of how you can tell it's a 28 because of the two-piece back. The D35s would have a three-piece back. You know, it's got a nice sound. Very old strings. Very good sound. So why is it in here? That's the question. Well, it needs some TLC, and it needs it in a big way, really. There's a very large bow here. The neck has a real big underbow for a non-adjustable neck. Just looking down it like I do, I can just tell it's just huge. And when you measure it, it measures around 40 thousandths. Now, that doesn't seem huge if you know what 40 thousandths is. That's 1 millimeter. So it's got a 1 millimeter bow from about, from really where it attaches the neck here to the nut. So in 1 millimeter there, but there's no way to get that out. It should only be maybe 10 thousandths. It should be 1/4 of that, or 0.25 millimeter. So that's a big deal. The bow back here it's not the worst I've seen, but it's significant. And here's a plastic ruler to sit on here, and we can see it hump across there. Perhaps you can see it rock. I don't know how well that's going to be in the camera, but you can probably see that it is rocking quite a bit. And I imagine if I left it, I just strung it up, just got it under tension. I imagine if I left it for, an hour or two, it would be bigger. It's a pretty big hump. It's not a little bitty hump. When you do it like that, it's off the top over here by a 1/4 inch. When I do it this way, it's off by about a 1/4 inch. So, probably close to an 1/8 inch hump right there in the middle. And probably bigger, like I said, if you let it set strung up for a while. Someone replaced the bridge on it. The bridge was coming off, and someone replaced the bridge years ago, and here's the original bridge that they would like to have put back on it. And I don't see a problem with that. I looked inside it. The bridge plate is tiny, which is probably the main reason that there's such a big hump here. In addition to that, I could tell when you rub your finger across here, when you've done this enough times, you can tell it's loose at the brace. I mean, I can just feel it right there. It's just a nice, big, very sharp hump. So I looked inside, and sure enough, it's coming loose at one of the X braces. So, it's just kind of in a world of hurt. They caught it at a good time, because if you let something like this go for much longer, it's only going to just get a lot worse and cause all kinds of additional problems. Like the top's going to crack down through here. There's just going to be all kinds of issues. So it's the time to fix it. And it falls on my plate. So I guess here we go. I don't even know where to start, because there's so many things, It's, yeah. I think to fix it right, I'm going to have to start on the fretboard and just start there and get that underbow out of this neck, because this neck is definitely got a lot of underbow in it that it don't need. And we'll try to get the neck angle right. Do these things on the fly. And now that I think about that, though, the lights are going off and on. you know, I think I may go ahead and take the fretboard off, but I don't think I'm going to try to fix that until I get this fixed, because all of this angle depends on where this lands here. So I've got to get this flattened out and leveled and put in place before I set the correct everything over here. And I can actually change the angle of this a little bit by the way I clamp the fretboard on. So I'm going to attempt to do that and get it to play right here. Therefore, I have to fix this first in terms of the bridge, in terms of the bridge plate and flattening out this top. So it's kind of an order of operations. You can mix them up a little bit, but you can't mix them up too much if you want to do a real good job. This is an old boomer. Like I said, it's the kind of guitar that others are judged by, and it sounds pretty good right now, but it's going to sound a whole lot better, and it's certainly going to play a whole lot better when we're done, because the strings right here are pretty high right now. I would say, I'm just looking at them, but I would guess the string height to be well over 150 thousandths. And of course, I've got my trusty little gauge right here. It only goes up to 150 thousandths. It slides all the way under there, so it's probably closer to 175 thousandths at the large E string here. It slides way past the 150. There's 150. The 150 is now underneath the A string, so it's definitely very high. Come along for the ride. It's probably going to be a bumpy one. I've got my bridge heater that I've had sitting on here for a while, and it's made the bridge nice and hot. I've also got the knife heater over here off camera that you can't see, and I've got 2 knives in it. And you know, just like always on Martin guitars, the bridge is always stuck way harder than it should be. So it's really hard to get a Martin guitar bridge off. At least that's always been my experience. I don't think I've ever got one off easy. But I've got it pretty hot, and the knives are pretty hot, so it's starting to go under there now. You can see I put the blue tape on there. I'm trying to avoid burning the finish. Pretty hard to do though, because everything has to be pretty darn hot to get them off of there. That went under there pretty well. Going to see what I can do about heating up the ends now a little bit more. That's one thing nice about the way I designed this heater. It's just about right for the midsection when you lay it down, and then it's pretty close to right for the end section when you hold it up on the ends. I have this heater turned up to about 400 degrees. The knife heater is turned up much hotter, but for whatever reason it doesn't get as hot as it says. It says 512, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of around 380 to 400 degrees. It doesn't quite get as hot as it says. That's why I have it turned up so much hotter. But this is doing a pretty good job. It's coming off fairly smoothly if it'll just come the rest of the way now. I think it's coming off pretty well. I hope it is. It feels like it's coming off really easy. I will say that the knife heater is a huge plus. Thank you so much, Carlos, for the knife heater. It really is nice. And then putting on the control, the heat control on it, I think was just an extra bonus there. I'm going to have to maybe go back from the front side a little bit yet. I'm hoping I'm not tearing out a lot of wood. But I think I am going to have to go in from the front side too. It seems like it's still grabbing. I'm afraid it's going to tear out some wood here. It doesn't feel like it's coming loose. Not too bad. Yeah, it tore out more than I wanted, but not terrible. It's very, very thin. It looks worse than it is, but you know, you try to get it without any tear out. It's just a destructive process. You can't do it without creating a little problem. There's a little noise in the background here. I think Melissa's on a cleaning kick in the office in there. But anyway, I have the bridge heater heating up the bridge plate at the moment, or at least I'm trying to. And I'm also heating up the bridge plate removal tool because I do feel like I need to take the bridge plate out of this, and I think I need to re-support the whole area, fix the loose brace, all of that in order to make this right, because it's never going to stay. You know, people talk about humidity and do this and do that, but if you don't fix it mechanically, I guarantee you it'll pull back. I've done it many times and they always pull back. This way, if you fix it mechanically and fix it right, it'll be good forever. I wanted to fit this in the knife heater and it just won't fit. I imagine that's pretty hot in there now, so I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens. I would say the chances of this coming out easy are slim to zero, and I'd say I was pretty close to right on that. I think I'm making progress though. Actually, the bridge plate seems to be back here. It doesn't even seem to be under the bridge. I mean, I'm sure part of it is. Yeah, part of it is. I'm gonna look in there and see if I'm making progress or making a mess. If it's coming loose, I can't tell it by looking at it. It's a piece of rosewood, so they used a good piece of wood for it. But it's a small, thin piece of rosewood, and I'm going to replace it with a plate that's more triangular and bigger. You know, some people would say that would hurt the sound, but you know, what really hurts the sound is when the top busts and opens up on it. That hurts the sound a whole lot more, and that's really how close we are to that. Somehow I let it slip, and I did burn the sides, or the finish there a little bit. I didn't think I had let it slip any, but I did apparently. It's really hard not to have something happen when you're doing this. It's a very destructive process, and I try to do the best I can, but boy, it's not easy when you got to work through the sound hole, and you got to get something unglued that don't want to unglue. That's stuck in there. I'm going to see what it looks like, see if it looks like it is actually working. The knife is actually stuck in there. It's not stuck under there very far though, just the corner of it looks like. So I'm going to heat it up some more. Let me tell you something, that thing is hot. When it touches your skin, you know it. It just reached over and touched me right there. I burnt myself pretty good with that in there. That didn't feel too good. Yeah, it's coming off now. I've almost got it loose. Now I can tell where it's hung though. I'll heat the knife up a little bit more, this removal tool. I'll heat it up a little bit more off camera here and reach in there and try to get that last spot. I think I got it. I think I did. That came off fairly cleanly too. That's not too bad. It's very, very thin. I don't know if you can see how thin that is, but that's seriously like notebook paper thin. Looks worse than it is. That's pretty good. And as I said before, that's a high quality piece of wood, so it was a good choice. It just wasn't big enough in my opinion. It should be another ½ inch bigger behind this and maybe come out another ½ inch in front of this, and then you would have a really good piece there that would keep this good and flat. We're going to call that good for right now. I figured since I already had the tools heated up and I was on a roll, I might as well just go ahead and get started on this fretboard removal also, because there's no way to get that underbow out of this until I get this fretboard loose, because it's not adjustable, and you know, it just is what it is. You know, I can't help the fact that it's bowed like that, and there's no way to fix it. I mean, yeah, you could put it under a heat lamp and you could try, you know, heating it that way and back bending it and all that stuff, but most of those fixes, in my opinion, are temporary, because, you know, it took it, you know, how many years to get in this shape, and it'll pull itself back into the shape, you know. So I think you have to fix them different than that in order to make them a permanent fix. So we'll heat it up real good and take it loose. Another possibility would be to put an actual truss rod in this, but I hate to do that only because Martin guitars typically don't have a truss rod that you can get to, you know, and it would change the looks of it so much that I think it would hurt the value of it, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to try to fix it just like it is by just back bowing and re-gluing the fretboard down correctly. But as I said, I don't even want to do that until I get the bridge plate fixed and all that, and get that first, and then we'll work on this. But I figure since this is all heated up and I'm on a roll, might as well get this off of here if we can. And so far that don't seem like that wants to budge. There we go, we found a little spot there that's going in. There we go. It's going under there now. It's one of those deals where if you had 3 or 4 hands and the guitar wouldn't move, it would be a lot easier. This really long knife was sent to me by my buddy Chuck, the former doctor. You know, it's good for something like this where you could reach way under here and open this back up to here without prying along these edges and making a problem there. I think it's got me past the end of the guitar now, so I'm going to try and work on the edges here and start working it down the rest of the way. So far the actual time on taking the bridge and the bridge plate off was exactly 30 minutes. Then I started on this. I imagine this will take a little more than 30 minutes to get this all the way off. But that's not too bad to get it completely apart in approximately an hour, maybe a little bit more. And then we can start all the build back, which from my perspective will be fairly straightforward and shouldn't take too much time, maybe a couple hours. Oh, probably 15-20 minutes later, we're still working on this, but we're getting close to the end now. I thought I'd turn the camera back on. Let's see if we can get it off this last little bit. It's kind of been hard. Not the hardest one I've ever done, I'm sure, but definitely not easy. Well, didn't come off perfectly clean. There's a little bit of tear out right there, but not too terribly bad when you figure it is a very destructive process. You can see the big heavy piece of metal tubing they used as the truss rod in there, and we'll see what we can do about that. We might even turn that over if we can get it out and turn it the opposite direction. You know, we'll see about that. I'm not sure if we'll do that or not. It's day 2 on the Martin guitar, and I have test fitted this caul up inside the guitar, which is one I had made a long time ago, and it fits it very well. And I double checked it against the one that was in there, and the angles and everything seemed to be correct, but there's a lot more meat on this. And so I'm going to cut this out of the Paduke, and it's quarter sawn, perfectly fine wood, good tone wood. It ought to make an excellent support for the bridge area. And because it's much bigger, it should hopefully keep the whole area flat. You know, it should work a lot better. So I'm going to cut this out. Now I'm not ready to glue this in there yet because I want to clean the area inside the guitar, and I also want to make sure all the braces are tight. And I know one brace is loose for sure because I've already seen that. So we want to get in there and fix all that first, and then we'll glue this in. But right now I'm just going to go cut this out. For the record, this is at 95 thousandths. The original was 100 thousandths. 5 thousandths is roughly the thickness of a sheet of notebook paper, or about the thickness of a human hair. So it's not really much different at all. But it is a little bit thinner than this, and over the surface that makes a difference in terms of, you know, rigidity and different things, and maybe stiffness, vibration even. So letting it be just a teeny bit thinner because it's so much bigger is just fine in my opinion. It'll be far stronger than this one, and it will cover a much larger area now. In fact, it covers an area about like this, and the X braces go through here, so it should be just fine. It'll make it much stiffer. Now I need to get inside here and work on the inside. I don't know if I'll be able to show you anything in there, but if I can, I will. Well, I've got this old Martin guitar laying on the bench, and I've got my camera working, and you can probably see the screen changing. I'm pointing at the window right at the moment. Now let's see, I'll point it at the camera, of which you're looking through at the moment. And now we'll point it down here at the sound hole. Start into the guitar, and I'm going to see if I can show you the brace that's loose in there. Don't know if I can or not because it's very hard to hold this still. Well, there you go. See that little tool there? If I can find it again. Well, I can't find it again. Very hard to do. The other problem is I can't get on this side. What I'll have to do is just make a video and show it to you. So we'll do that. This wire is very stiff. You would think you can move it, but it really doesn't like to move. It's good in one way that it's stiff, and it's not so good in another way. I'm really not having much luck here. Okay, there we go. Okay. If you can see this little perpendicular deal, that's a tool. I have metal on the end of it up there, and I have that slid under that loose brace. The brace is loose right there. That's the X brace. Trying to get where I can give you a better view of that even, but there's the X brace. It runs down through like so. And that little tool that I made there is just got a real thin metal blade on it where I can get in there and clean out underneath the brace. But I think that demonstrates it. Now it's a little, obviously it's crooked across the screen, but that would be the top of the guitar. This is the X brace going this way. So let me pull the tool out of there and show you what that looks like. Well, my friends, this little tool is what you could see in that shot that was up inside the guitar. It's just a X-Acto blade that I actually blunted the tip of the blade completely flat and square and blunt. That way when you slide it through, it kind of pushes off anything that's in the way, glue or dirt or anything. And so it basically pushes anything out of the way. You can see there it's really, really thin. So it'll go into the littlest, tiniest crack. It's just glued on here with Gorilla Glue basically. And so it just gives me something to hold on to it when I'm pushing it through those things. Seems to work pretty well. In addition, off camera, I've taken this little scraper and I've scraped around the bridge plate area where I want to put the new bridge plate. I have got the new bridge plate cut out, and up until just a moment ago when I needed it, I had it right here. Well, here it is. I found it. And so this bridge plate will go up inside there like so. I think it'll fit perfectly. Feels like it does. Yep, everything fits perfectly. It feels like it fits up in there really good and flat. I don't feel like there's anything rocking it or holding it out of the way. So before I put the bridge plate in, I think I'll go ahead and glue that one loose brace that you can see that I had this inserted into, and we'll get that clamped up and let that set for a couple hours, and then we'll go ahead and glue this in. Going to try an experiment, and it truly is an experiment. I'm going to take this superphatic glue, squeeze it in here, put this little needle top on here, and see if I can get this in there. And maybe this will, the superphatic glue, the reason I'm using that as opposed to Titebond is that this stuff's really thin, and we've been testing it and we know it holds good, so I think it might be the best way to get the glue in here. I actually have that little tool inserted in there so I can tell where the crack is. I need to move it around a little bit though, because it's not working just like I want it. I had it in there and then I bumped it out or something. And I'm going to turn the guitar up like so where I can reach in there. And I can tell where that is, and I'm going to see if I can squeeze glue in there. I'm going to actually push the little tool back with the tip of this, and I think I can get glue in there. I feel pressure like this is squeezing. I don't know if anything's coming out. I should have tested that before I even put it in there. I don't know if the glue's coming out. Yeah, the glue's coming out okay, so I can feel right where the hole crack is. I would think I'm getting good glue in there. Yeah, it feels really good. I'm hoping it's all completely covered. I would say it would be. Now I'll take my little tool completely out. My tool's got glue on it, so I would think it's glue in it. Though I gotta be honest, I don't feel it on the other side. I was hoping it would be coming out the other side. I'm gonna have to get the camera going again and look inside there and see what it looks like. I feel like I was able to get the glue up in there really well. I took the camera, as you can see I've got the camera light on here, and I was up inside there. I didn't film it this time because I'm trying to work in a hurry and get the clamp on there, but I went in from the opposite side also with the glue bottle and was able to get it underneath the brace. I'm pretty sure it's going to look fine. I'll try to take a picture of it once I get the clamp on here. Fairly sure it should be squeezing out of there now. I think that picture shows it very well. Maybe I can turn it around here. You can see it on here in case the video doesn't come out. Yeah, now I can't see it again, but I think that shows it pretty well there, that the glue is all up inside the brace. This line here is the glue line, and this is the clamp in there, the metal clamp. From what I can see, it looks real good. I'm going to go in there and clean this out now. Just clean up the glue squeeze out. I think everything's going to be real good. We'll just have to wait until that sets up and then take a look at it later. Just about ready to glue the bridge plate in there. I have cleaned it off, and I have toothed this side of it, and this is the side that's going to go up. And I'm going to go ahead and get the glue on this. I've also cleaned this with acetone. This Paduke really does have a lot of oil in it, and while I've glued it without cleaning it before, I always feel a little better if I do clean it. I've never had it come loose one way or the other. And I've got that coated really well. I've got these two pieces that I'm going to use as cauls under it. And anyway, they're going to, you know, clamp up, help hold it up in there and keep it flat. That's their main purpose. But first, I'm going to see if I can get it to stick up in there by itself. I have this thick board on top up here so that it will keep the top flat as we clamp this down. because the top was bowed. And if we can clamp all of this flat at the same time, then the new bridge plate will help hold that, you know, keep the top much flatter. I think it's going to stick up in there by itself long enough for me to get these up in there. At least I hope it will. Everything feels like it's in place. So now if I can just reach over here and get a clamp. And honestly, I'm not sure these clamps are going to be long enough. I may have to go to something else. I'm not sure there's enough throw in these clamps here. Should have had it opened up already, but you know, sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Wasn't ready. I don't think this is going to be open up enough. I really don't. But it might. We'll see. Nope, I don't think it's going to. If I take out one of those cauls on the inside, it might. Yeah, I think it will then. Well, maybe it will with both of them. Yeah, there. I don't know why it wouldn't fit before, but now it's fitting fine. There it goes. So yeah, that's fitting. Just clamp it down lightly. Reach up in there and make sure everything's fine. I think it is. I'm going to look in there with my mirror just to make sure that I'm happy with it. It feels like it's in the right place, but sometimes when you look at them, you find out that you're not where you think you are. No, that looks fine. Everything looks good. So I'll put a little bit more pressure on that now. And we'll go ahead and open up these other two clamps and get them on both sides of that so that that caul is holding that bridge plate up in there really good and flat. That should be good, but I'll see if I can check it here. Yeah, that looks real good. And then I'll get the last one in place. And for the record, I did clean off the inside of the guitar where the bridge plate is going. I used a scraper in there and scraped it, and it was in pretty good shape anyway, but the scraper just helped smooth it out a little bit more and make it real nice. I don't have those clamps all tight yet, but I wanted to make sure that they look good before I go tightening them up. Yeah, they all look like they're fine. This middle one's pretty tight. And we'll tighten up these others. And now we'll let that set for at least overnight, and we'll see what we ended up with. My friends, I'm looking at this Martin, and the neck angle, I wouldn't call it horrible, but it is in a world of hurt. It's definitely not where it needs to be. You know, there's a little less underbow in it than there was. I just have this, of course, just clamped on here that's not permanently affixed. I look down it and I can still see some underbow. So that's part of the problem. There's an underbow in here that's lifting this end of the neck up a little bit, which might, if I get that out, might fix my problem here, because we're only down about, and I'm just guessing, roughly 50 thousandths of an inch. That's about how much we're below grade there, or where I would like to see it. Let me see what the gap is at the 12th fret. That'll give me some idea of what we're talking about. So if I lay this on here, lay that on the 1st fret, the gap at the 12th fret is pretty high, actually, bigger than I thought. It's, boy, it's right on 60 thousandths. So we're 60 thousandths high here when this is sitting back here. So in order to drop that 60 thousandths, we'd have to drop this quite a bit, like, you know, double that really, 120 thousandths, which would be a lot. That's basically 1/8 of an inch that this would need to go down. And actually, that's about what I would say based on what I'm seeing here. I'm hoping that this will buy us at least half of that by taking this underbow out a little bit. I'm not sure it's going to buy us all of it though. And the reason I'm cautious is because if we have to do a neck reset, now is the time to do it. It's not after I get the fretboard glued back on it. So I'm just trying to think logically, and is this something we can fix without a neck reset, or are we going to have to go that full extent? And I sure hope we don't have to go that full extent. That was the complaint about this, that it wasn't playable. The action was very high, and right now if you put the strings back on it, glued up in this configuration, we haven't changed anything really. I mean, we probably helped it a little bit because this is flatter back here now, but we haven't fixed the whole problem. And actually, I could almost argue that this was caused by this angle being wrong. It put so much more tension up here on this. It's like if you were grabbing something and lifting it up, like so, and pulling from this end, the higher you get it, the easier it is to pull. Same way, this here being higher was having more leverage on this than it should have had, and then this started coming up, and then the two together really had a lot more leverage over time, and that's why we're in the shape we're in today. So, I'm just going to think about it off camera here, look at it from a bunch of different angles, and see what I come up with. Well, with Caleb's assistance, I held down on the back of the guitar here. I had him hold the straight edge on there and press down on the peg head, and it easily raised it above the bridge here. So, I think if I play my cards right, we might be able to cock this neck in such a way that we can, make it hold. What I'm actually thinking about doing, believe it or not, is I'm actually thinking about gluing down just this section right here, which is opposite of what almost everyone else would do probably. But I'm thinking about gluing down this section right here, then putting the peg head under stress. That will pull the peg head under, if you will. It'll be kind of pulling the peg head that way, dropping the fretboard down a little bit, then clamping it up. If I have this already glued in place, this is solid then, and that keeps this from pushing back. And that's the reason I would want to glue this ahead of time. Kind of an unconventional way to do something, but I think it's the right way in this case. Also, I can make sure that this body fret here stays right on the body line that way too, and yet move the neck. And I think I can control it that way. I'm going to give that some more thought to make sure I haven't missed something that, maybe that would cause another problem. But right now, that's the way I'm leaning. Just thinking through my process here, if I glue this down first, the hardest thing about it that I can see would be how will I get glue under this section here, because it's going to be very, very, very tight. And the answer is, I don't know. I really don't. People talk about injecting it with needles and things, and I've had very limited success with that. But we may have to do it that way and just try to figure it out. I'm going to try to do some dry mock-ups of this. I'm going to try to clamp this in place and mock it up and make sure that what I think will work. So I'll bring you back when I figure how I'm going to mock that up. Okay, just as kind of a sanity check, I have this all mocked up right here like it was glued in place. I left a little trail where I could put my straight edge in, and I've got the bridge in the appropriate location. And by the way, this is the original bridge which the customer asked that I put back on there. Now I'm going to set it up on that bridge and test my thickness again, and sure enough, it's right at 60 thousandths of an inch. So, we're nearly 1/8 of an inch high at this end. So we need to drop that down a lot. Now the question is, how do you go about that? And I am not 100% sure I know. So what I think I'm going to do for the mock-up is I'm going to somehow clamp this butt end back here to the edge of my table on this carpet, and then I'll be free with my other hand to work on this end and push it down. Okay, I'm gonna try the idea here and see if it's gonna work. Not sure it is gonna work, but if you can notice now, if I slide this back, you will watch the bridge move because it's pushing the bridge. You can see the pushing the bridge back. That indicates we're not above the bridge, obviously. And you know, we've already talked about how much height we've got there. We're about 60 thousandths below that spot. So, slightly off camera here, I don't think you're going to be able to see it. I'm pushing down on this end, and as I'm pushing down, I'm trying to keep the straight edge flat on there, and I'm walking the straight edge back to the bridge area, and I'm pushing down a little harder, and I'm just about to get there. I'm really right there. So I do think it's feasible, and I don't see it creating any hump in the neck or anything, which it could do that. So my feeling is if we hold, you know, a good straight edge on this, we'd have to, you know, maybe get a big, thick, heavy, straight block of wood and put on top of here, pull this down, you know, clamp it all together to that block of wood. I think we'd be okay. The question is, how do we check alignment with something on top of the fretboard? But I kind of think we need something on top of the fretboard, even though we could probably get by without it. The reason I think we needed something there is to keep this from humping in the middle. I don't want it to hump in the middle here. I want it to stay flat, and basically we're stressing it more from back here then, you know. We're actually putting more stress right back here toward the heel than anywhere else if we keep this flat and straight. And as long as we don't go crazy, I think we can get by with that without breaking anything, and I think it'll hold. You know, the only other option is to go the full neck reset option, and you know, for anybody who's ever done one of those, that's a lot more time, a lot more effort, and I think this is going to work just fine. So I always say do the easy thing first, and then if you have to do the complicated thing later, then do it. So this is the easy thing in my opinion, because we're not that far off. If we were a lot further off, well then sure, we'd have to do a neck reset. One more thing to note is that I can look down this. This is my main test, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, straight edges, all that kind of thing. I like to look down this plane and see where that neck is down here at the end, down here. And when I stress it down like that, it looks absolutely perfect. I don't see any weird raised spots or humps or anything going on. So maybe I don't need to worry about the flat straight edge on top so much. I just need to stress it into place, get the glue on it, and clamp it up really good. Well, I have a plan. Now, am I brave enough to execute it? That's the question. I guess I will. Here we go. As you know, I'm going to force the neck of that Martin guitar into shape, and I need a way to do that. In the past, I've clamped it on the edge of my workbench, but to be perfectly honest with you, that gives me the EBGBs because, you know, the wrong bump and it could hit the floor. I mean, it really could, because it's clamped right on the bleeding edge of the workbench, and that's not a good thing. So I'm making a specialty board or, you know, clamp device, whatever you want to call it, which we can use for many other instruments down the road. We've had a need to work on different things over the years that this would have been handy for. So it's something we can reuse, but I'm going to make it out of a piece of plywood, as you see down here on the bottom, and then two 2x4s, and then when we turn it over, it'll set this up off of the table where we can get clamps on this. So I think it'll be fine. This is not rocket science or anything. Just simple wood butchery, that's all we're doing here. I'm going to leave about an inch on the edges here because we might sometime need to put a clamp on the very edge also. So I'm not even going to measure it, just eyeball it. It's good enough for this purpose. What I'm doing is I'm clamping the ends of these 2x4s. This is Type Bond Ultimate 3. This is just their outdoor type wood glue. I don't use much of this in the shop, but on something like this, it's perfectly fine. And then, as I said, I'm just clamping the ends, and then I'm going to turn it over and drive a few screws so I can get to work on this rather than having to wait for the glue to set up. Now I should be able to turn this over and drive, you know, maybe 3 screws per board here on the sides or on the top. This will make this really stiff and easy to bend the neck on the guitar with this. So that ought to be good enough to hold it for my purposes, and the glue will take it the rest of the way over time. But I just need a good stiff platform. Even though that's only 1/2 inch plywood, it's stiff enough for our purposes. Off camera, I just started putting glue on here, and then I thought, you know, I ought to turn the camera back on. But anyway, I'm going to spread this glue out really good. And just, like I said, only have it in this area here. This is a little risky for another reason, and that is, you know, the alignment of the fretboard down the neck. Now, you know, obviously I can test that while I'm doing it, but if you don't get it just right, there ain't no moving it this way. So you got to get it just right. I'm going to go ahead and put a little glue on this surface too, because in this particular case, this is where the strength is going to be coming from, right here, at least until everything sets up. Once everything sets up, then it's fine. Everything will be, the weight and the pressure and all that will be much more evenly distributed. But at the beginning, when we're stressing this neck, this is the area that's going to have the most stress. And once again, whenever you try to glue flat surfaces, they like to move on you. They like to slide around. They just don't stay put. So that's the other reason why I said this is a little bit risky, because it does move on you. And you know, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to take my time, fit it up by hand, squeeze all the glue out by hand as much as I can. And 15 years ago, I could have squeezed a lot more out. It's just painful to try to do that now. I'm just going down through here and testing my alignment by feel. And it feels pretty good. I think I've got most of the glue squeezed out that would be sliding it around. So now we will, I had a little block of wood here just a moment ago, and now it is hiding on me. It's strange. I laid everything right here so I wouldn't have to hunt for it. And somehow or another that little piece, well, that little piece didn't get laid there. That's the problem. It's still inside the guitar. There you go. I've got a little block of wood in there which takes up the space, because this one brace that goes across here is very tall. And so that little block of wood in there takes up enough space to make this fit in here and not hit the other brace. At least that's the theory. The problem is you got to get it all in there. This is the little block of wood I'm talking about. I'm going to try to clamp it and leave a little bit of room down the center again, because I might want to check straightness and things, levelness. I think I'll try to get rid of some of the squeeze out there before I get too much clamped up. Okay, everything still feels like it's lined up just fine. I'll get the other clamp on this side now. That's really causing a lot more squeeze out on this side over here that you can't see. When I say a lot, I do mean a lot. A lot of glue came out over there. So I've got to get that cleaned up. Okay, I've got those really cranked down pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and crank down this one. And it's causing a lot more squeeze out too, which I expected. And I'm going to put one in under the neck heel and in front of this right here. And that's causing quite a bit more also. But now it's in real good shape, and it still feels lined up down through here, so we're good. Now it's just clean up and let it set. I'm going to let this set overnight. I want to make sure that this is absolutely solid before we start doing the next part. That's looking real good. We'll show you what it looks like after we get the clamps off of it there, and we'll move on to the next step. I've got the guitar loosely in this new jig I've just made, and I don't have the back clamped down yet. So let me swing the camera around here, hopefully, if I can do that, and show you the back. All that amounts to is taking a piece of leather, laying it right over the tail block there, and then clamping down with this squeeze clamp. And we could, you know, put quite a bit of pressure on that, but I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on that yet. You can see I've got a board across here, and I can adjust this with these wing nuts fairly easily. I have leather under here making contact with the actual neck. This gets everything out of the way of the fretboard. It allows me to put enough pressure up here that I can pull this neck to almost any angle I want to. I can set this on here. So now you can see from the nut up to the bridge. Here's the bridge right here, which it's kind of hard to see. It's a little dark. But anyway, I got my straight edge on here, and at the moment it doesn't go over the bridge, it's below the bridge. So I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to clamp the back of this down a little tighter just to hold it in place. Now I'll check it again and see if it goes over the bridge. Yes, it already does. So really, right there is perfect. I mean, it's actually right where I want it. It's about, well, I don't even know, I guess. Let's just see how many thousandths of an inch it is over that. I'm going to guess it's somewhere in the 40 or 50 thousandths range. And it's just a guess. 30 thousandths. So it's about 30 thousandths. That's not bad. And I don't see any point in overstressing it. But maybe I should overstress it a little bit just because there will be some spring back. I'm sure there will be a little bit of spring back. So I'm going to take this clamp just a little bit more. Just another little squeeze there on the back end. And let me test this now. Now we're up to almost 50 thousandths, 45-ish. That's really looking pretty darn good. I'm just concerned there's going to be quite a bit of spring back. So I might go a little bit more. And just another little squeeze there. Now we're up to almost right at 70. So, you know, I think that's probably fine. Because I'm sure there'll be some spring back. And I think 70 thousandths is just about right. And that's just an intuition. I have no way to know for sure. But also looking down the fretboard just to see if it looks flat. It does look pretty flat. I don't feel any real rocking. Now there's going to be obviously a rock right here, but that's kind of normal. I mean, even on one from the factory, you know. So that looks pretty good. Now my trick is getting glue under all of this and getting it all clamped down. So we'll work on that next.